Hello, hello. Here we are coming to you again, and we are the Paranormal World Show under the umbrella of Broadcast Team Alpha. And we're going to have some fun tonight because this is going to be very special. I got a very, very old friend. Not that he's old, but he's an old friend. So, so I've known him for years and years, and we gotten to know each other very well. We have done some projects together, and we created a video documentary together, and we're having fun. Anyway, I have Robert Miles with us. He's returning to Broadcast Team Alpha, which is kind of is here, and we are going to talk about an incredible experience that he had. He had an extraterrestrial experience where he was taken to another planet in this solar system, and we're going to talk about that. So don't go anywhere because this is going to get good. And we are going out on 40 different platforms, 44 actually. And if you are watching on YouTube right now, that's the place to be because we are also monitoring the chat room. The other platforms we are not able to monitor, so we are just watching you on YouTube, and you can participate in it. Put questions in there and put the questions in capital letters so we see them easily. That way we can answer them for you. And if you want to get a hold of Nori Love and myself, you can go to broadcastteamalpha.com and send us a message. We'll get the message and we'll get back to you. And otherwise, I want to tell you that Nori and I have created a spiritual think tank where we do some incredible things. If you want to be part of something that is bigger than yourself, come and visit. It seems like a lot of people talk about prayer. They hardly ever work. But there is a way to make them work, and that is to work with the universal mind or the quantum field. When you know how to talk to it, things happen. It seems like we are creating out of seemingly nothing sometimes. Things just shows up. You should come and check it out. If you want to be part of something like that or come and check it out, send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And if you like what you hear tonight, please subscribe and click the bell next to it so you can see when the next videos are coming out. And we have Robert Miles with us, and welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you very much, old friend Aage.
Yeah,
it's exciting to be back here with you, talking to all the people that's out there that follow you and follow programs like you produce, you and Nori, worldwide. And
yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, and I do want to say a couple of few things about you because there may be 2 or 3 out there that don't know you. You've been around a long time. You've done a lot of documentaries, and you are an author. You are a videographer. You are a movie producer, and gosh, you've done so much that I just ran into a corner when I was trying to put together a introduction for you. Maybe you could say a few of the most important things that you can think of that you have been involved with over the years.
Oh, I'd love to. Probably the thing that's the most interesting about me is I've always had the spirit of adventure. I've adapted and adopted the spirit of adventure as a way of life.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend it. But you better be ready for it because, like a lot of things in life, there's ups and downs. And ultimately, it's like you were talking about.
Yeah.
If you engage yourself and you don't give up, and you take the bad and look, I think we learn a lesson from the bad if we're smart. And I know so many times I thought I learned the lesson, and then I went back and did something just as foolish and had this premonition that it wouldn't work. But I also had this feeling that, well, it could work. You know, some people play the lottery. I, I don't think your odds are very good, but I
Yeah.
sometimes buy a ticket. So the spirit of adventure took me as a young boy into the mountains and the woods of Eastern Oregon with my dad. He loved to hunt and fish, and he taught me so much about how a person could survive because he always respected the Indians, and he even wore moccasins. And he taught me how to shoot a bow and arrow. He taught me how to shoot a rifle.
Yeah.
Most kids started with a BB gun, but I started with the 22, one of my own. And he was such a good shot that I saw him shoot an acorn out of the mouth of a pine squirrel at about, 100 feet away. And he said, "Boy, look at that squirrel there. Do you see that nut?" And I said, "Yes, Dad." And he did it. And he used to shoot for Remington Rifle. And he used to win the turkey shoots, which was pretty amazing because they're in Baker, Oregon, where he was a cook, and he competed against some real old timers. But Dad always believed there were better things in life, and I think I caught it from him. And I went on. I grew up like most kids, and I grew up in a time in the 60s when everybody loved to dance and everybody loved to party. And if you think back to that time, Augie, you probably remember them, but people were doing things like American Bandstand.
Yeah.
And I moved to Portland to go to high school. It was a big trauma because I went from a three-room schoolhouse to 1,500
Yeah.
kids. And so, big adjustment. After leaving Portland, I had a goal, and my goal was to have a Corvette. And Corvettes to me were the symbol of, well, of being at the top of the heap in
I know
terms
I
of
know why
Corvette.
I know why you wanted the Corvette, because it gets the girls.
Oh, it did. Yeah, there was one big drive-in called the TikTok,
Uh,
and the girls came out on roller skates. And because the Corvette I had was a convertible roadster,
yeah.
boy, I tell you, they'd lean over the side of the low window and hand those milkshakes in and hamburgers. And boy, we had a time. And that Corvette was designed to hold three people, but
Mhm.
I often had four or five. And we had a good time.
Yeah.
And after I finally got one, the very first night, Augie, I tore out of that drive-in, impressing the girls and all the guys sitting there with their cars. And that was a time when a lot of the cars, the Dodges and some of the other ones, had souped up engines. And
Yeah.
the police saw me. And within a very short time, they were after me. And of course, being in a Corvette and being young, I figured I could outrun them. Well, Augie, I didn't outrun them. What I did is I ran straight into a brand new 57 Ford. And I totaled the Corvette and I totaled the Ford. And I'll tell you, I should have learned a lesson.
Yeah.
But from that point on, Corvettes were the way of life. And I had quite a few because I started buying them from junkyards after they
Yeah,
had crashed. I learned how to fix them myself. I
yeah.
worked my way all the way up to what I call the green leader. And I didn't know it at the time. And I bought it from the young son of the guy that owned the Starfish Tuna Company, the old Charlie Tuna commercials.
Hmm.
I had at that time an old J2, which had three carburetors.
Yeah.
And I honked that guy down and I said, "Hey, your Corvette's kind of damaged there. It's got a fender hanging." And he said, "Yeah, that's a nice car you got." And I said, "You want to trade?" And I ended up with his Corvette and he ended up with my J2. But Corvettes have always been a symbol. And let me tell you, I'm 81, but I still want another one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that could be for another day probably, and I think there's a lot of people out there that already had some experience maybe about the Corvette, except for the crashes, though, those who you want to stay away with. But you also you did some sailing. Let's spend about 20 seconds on that because we want to get to the good stuff about your trip to another planet.
Yeah, you know, I was living a good life there in Portland. I was selling death. I became a salesman after I had gone to college there. And going to college, I worked in a shipyard
Mhm.
building ships and boxcars, and I made darn good money. But you know, it was a nasty job. And one day, when John F. Kennedy died, I remember the overhead crane that was bringing the boxcars down the track stopped for 2 minutes.
Mm.
Then it blew the whistle and went back to work again.
Mhm.
And 3 days later, a railroad car, the side of it fell down and crushed one of the workers. And I had a speedboat. I was water skiing on the Columbia, and I happened to meet some people, and they started talking to me about boats. Hey,
Mhm.
you got a nice boat, you know, all this, but we're building a boat to sail around the world. And so I got to know them and I went over to their house and they were pretty nice people. And they said that river out there, that Columbia River,
Mhm.
that's the way to a whole nother way of life.
Yeah.
And within a short time, I ended up buying an old boat. And because I was a steel worker, I replaced the wooden hull because it was all rotten and put a steel hull on it up to the water line. And I think you got a picture there of that sailing, and that appeared in Sea Magazine, which was the premier magazine of that time in the
Yeah.
whole boating world.
Yeah. Well,
And it was go
we'll get to those pictures in a second, but I wanted to uh, talk to us about your experience that brought you to another planet. And but before you do that, I want to say something, and that is that that was Jupiter.
that's right.
Yeah, Jupiter, for most people, they think of Jupiter as a gaseous planet, just gas. But it may not be so. Because think of it. Let me explain a little bit using logic and science both. First of all, Jupiter is so big, it's kind of the vacuum cleaner of the solar system. When things come in through the disk, it passes going in towards the center and it can't get by Jupiter. Jupiter absorbs the asteroids and the rocks and the dust from space over billions of years that will accumulate inside the planet. and it will create a solid center. That center will grow as the billions of years go. So we have a center that is solid inside that planet. That's logically, it has to be that way. Now, on top of that, NASA he has been up to now telling us that Jupiter is just a gas giant. Well, no. They reversed their decision on that now because they have just recently come out and said within the last less than a year, saying that we have detected a large ocean under the gas on Jupiter, which tells me it is another planet with a different type of atmosphere that appears to be blue at the outer edge. So now we got a planet where there could be something there that is totally different than what NASA has talked about. And that is what you experienced decades ago. So tell us about that story, how it started.
And I'm going to say that was decades ago. That was in 1971. And I had built one of those ships, a trimaran, which had 3 hulls, and we sailed it from Portland down the California coast to San Diego and then sailed on to Hawaii. And that took a trip of 24 days. And we had expected to do it in 16 because these trimarans are fast. Now, that old boat I built, the Tanya, it did about 6 miles an hour, but this trimaran was capable of speeds up to 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that all depends on the wind, because we have a little outboard motor and we couldn't carry enough gas except to gas in and out of the harbor. But I'd like to say, first of all, I've made a bunch of motion pictures. Right now, they're documentaries, and I think there's like 15 or 16 in release now. And at one time, we had our own series called the UFO Chronicles on Amazon. And now, as you know, I retired for a while. Sometimes, Augie, we would get orders back when I was selling, and I don't sell anymore. I don't sell books. I don't sell DVDs. I don't sell my movies. I have a team that does that. And so sometimes we had 600 orders a day when Fast Walkers came out. And Fast Walkers, as you know, and some of your audience would know, was the #1 film of its kind in the world and was shown in theaters on a movie screen in film. And then Columbia Pictures and other companies bought my story Safe Space, which was a book I published in manuscript form. And they hired me as a writer on that project for 2 years. But the planet Jupiter, back in the days when I dared to talk about my experience, because everybody said I was crazy.
Yeah.
You're delusional. How have you been taking LSD? Because that was the days of Timothy Leary too. But I would say that my genres are UFOs, UAPs, aliens, extraterrestrial, and government conspiracy and cover-up. Now, the stuff that people is hearing comes direct from the DOD, the Department of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most carefully guarded secrets the world has ever had, because only one country of the world had the technology that gave us, America, the gateway to other planets and other systems, unless it was extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
And you and I know because we just made a film that's coming out that showed that the Germans actually had bases on other planets and on the moon, probably as early as 1936. And you did a film with one of the greatest people of all time. And that film shows pictures and the whole buildup
Yep.
that the Germans did to produce flying saucers.
Yep.
And those flying saucers were capable of being how fast, Augie? There were a
Well,
series,
the Haunebu 2 could go anywhere from about 9,000 to 21,000 miles an hour.
yeah, yeah. And how high could it go?
Well, then again, I had on another computer, I had the test results written in German from one of the test flights of the Haunebu 2 from the surface to 60,000 feet in 3 minutes.
Wow. Now the Honeyboo 3 and 4 went where, Augie?
Yeah.
Yeah, it went to the moon, didn't it?
Yes, I did.
And the Germans, and we show pictures, and a lot of them came from thanks to you, and they're NASA pictures of German bases on the moon by 1942. And Augie, the only question that you and I don't really know, but we're pretty sure of, is that it wasn't built by us. It was built by another advanced civilization.
Yeah.
And the Germans, when they found it, what did they do?
Yep.
What
And
did they do?
in fact, I just can't help it. We are talking to thousands of people, so I might as well say it. If people want to see that documentary, the video documentary that Robert and I did, go to Amazon and put in the term Agenda 21, no, Aliens and Agenda 21. Aliens and Agenda 21. Put that in a search bar and it'll come up and you can watch that video where he even show a crater on the moon where there is a swastika building in the bottom of it, and that's where the Germans have their base now.
Yeah. And you know, Augie, what many people don't realize is that there's only a few media channels that the people of the United States and the allies of the United States ever get access to, because other countries like Brazil and
Yeah.
Peru, and you know, Paula Harris holds wonderful conferences from people from other countries. And in the old days, back when our film Fastwalkers won People's Choice Awards, and I think you got a picture of me standing there with
Yeah.
a couple of trophies. I don't know, we were so pleased. And I had three other partners. I had my son, Anthony Miles, who directed it,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote it and filmed a lot of it. And then I also had another partner by the name of Stoyan, who was a MiG 25 pilot in Bulgaria, and another partner by the name of Bruce Jessup, who lived in Germany. And he heard me on the Art Bell show. And in those days, I didn't talk about this to very many people, but
Mm-hmm.
Art Bell got a hold of me and he said, "Look, I want you to come on my show." And I said, "Okay." So I went on his show, and for 3.5 hours, I told my story. And of course, the next night, they had this colonel attacking me and saying that I was either drugged up or delusional because people like scientists like Hal Puthoff And Ingo Swann, one of the greatest painters and storytellers in the world, worked for the UN as an
Yeah.
interpreter. I mean, he did paintings of the aft ship's view from the constellation Sagittarius, and I stayed with him overlooking Central Park in New York, and he said, I was there.
Yeah.
I was on that starship and standing at the aft, and I was looking through the most enormous. Those are big ships, Augie.
Yeah.
You got a picture of the Titha. That's a
Hmm.
gold color one you're going to show later.
Yeah, I'll
And
show you.
do you know that the Titha is over 5,000 feet long?
Yeah.
It's a Federation warship. It's
Hmm.
got 5,000 warrior robots in, well, suspended. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's called suspended animation with a robot or not, because
Yeah.
they're pretty advanced.
Yeah.
Nothing compared to what we got when we talk about
Yeah.
robots.
Tell us a little more about being on the ship or going there or being there.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sure.
I
I'm
want to
sorry.
hear about that.
I get excited. I
Yeah,
mean,
I know you do.
okay. Well, first of all, I told you that I built a boat in Portland, Oregon with a great partner, Mike Sones, and we sailed that boat to Hawaii. And we lived in Hawaii for about 2.5 years. And he and I's goal, I mean, if you can imagine building a three-hull ship, took us over 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was a big risk because it was lightweight. It was built like an airplane,
Yeah.
designed to surf, okay, like surfboard. Well, Mike and I worked as welders there on the islands, and then we cruised around because we got paid pretty good, you know. And when we had enough money, we ended up in Alawai Yacht Harbor in Honolulu.
Yeah,
And
but that's not the ship I was thinking of. I was talking about the spaceship.
oh, I'm sorry, Audley. The
Yeah, just tell
spaceship,
us how you
the
got.
one I was on, or the Titha, the big one.
Yeah,
Which
but
one? Which one do you want to know? Well,
how
the
you.
reason I started that story there is because that's where it happened.
Okay, go ahead.
I was there on my boat at Alawai Yacht Harbor, which is one of the most beautiful and luxurious yacht harbors in the world. Anyone that sails anywhere wants to sail to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay, they get there, they come up, they stay there a while, and then they go on. Now, Mike really wanted to go on, but Augie, after 2.5 years of surfing, skin diving, going to parties, uh, meeting all these people, and the Hawaiians were wonderful people back then. And I got bored. I
Yeah.
got completely bored. I wanted to know who I was. I certainly wasn't a partier. I mean, I was burnt out on that. So we decided to sell the boat. We discussed it for a while, and he differed with me. But because he's the kind of person he is, like he said, we took different paths. He went on to become very successful. Um, I said, well, let's sell the boat. And finally, he agreed. And we put an ad in the paper, and within 1 week, a guy came down and he says we got $12,000, which in 71 was a lot of money.
Mhm.
I think we got 15 or 17. I can't really remember. But the morning he came to pick up the boat, I was laying in my bunk, and I always wake up early, and I had a skylight over my head. And I'd go in and make coffee about 4:30, come back to my bunk and drink my coffee, and I'd stick my head and shoulders up out of that skylight and watch a beautiful sunrise. And so I was doing that, and then I sat back down and I felt this tingling kind of energy. And at first, it just kind of tingled. And then I started to see like a little glow things. And within the next couple of minutes, a beautiful woman, of course, materialized in my stateroom, standing right beside me in my walkway next to my bed. And man, it blew my mind. The energy was incredible. She radiated an aura that was just unbelievable. I mean, you meet people, I know you do, where you can see their aura, you can feel their energy.
Yeah.
But Aage, never in my life have I felt that kind of energy.
Yeah.
And she said, "It's all right, Robert. We're friends." And I said, "This can't be real." And she said, "Oh, yeah, it's real. And we want you to come and meet some more of your friends." And I said, "How do I do that?" Now, some people say, "Well, you were abducted." And I say, "No, I wasn't abducted. I went willingly." And so she said, "What you do is you close your eyes and you'll be there. And just imagine you're in New York City at LaGuardia Airport." And I said, "I can't do that." And she said, "Oh, yes, you can with my help." And the next thing I knew, I closed my eyes and boom, I was in LaGuardia Airport in New York City, and there were people walking all around. And she said, "I want you," speaking in my mind, "I want you to go up to the counter and ask for a ticket on the Jupiter flight." Now, Aage, that blew my mind. I
Yeah.
mean, how crazy am I? I'm having a delusion here. And she said, "No, you're not. Go up to that counter and ask that lady for a ticket on the Jupiter flight." So I did. And I walked up to the counter and I said, "I'm Robert Miles. And there's a lady that told me I should ask for a ticket on the Jupiter flight." And she said, "Well, let me check the computer." She checked the computer. She said, "Oh, yes, here it is." And she gave me the ticket. And I said, "How much is it?" And she said, "Oh, no, that's all taken care of. Now, go over to that set of elevators and take the third one and push the button and it'll come on open. And you'll go up to a concourse. And when you get there, get off. It'll stop there and get off. And then someone will take you to your seat on the craft." So I did. Now, when I got in the elevator, there was an old man and a younger boy. And I felt movement, but just for a moment. And then it opened up and I went out and I emerged into this beautiful, beautiful circular concourse area. And I was met there by a lady that had like a lycra blue suit, which the lady in my boat did too. But this lady had stripes running down it like a rainbow across her chest. And she escorted me in and set me down in a seat. Right, there were two seats, but between the two seats were some digital clocks, and they were turning at different speeds. And that was before the days of digital clocks. And there was a round porthole, and I looked out and I saw lots of big things, but I didn't know what they were. And then over the loudspeaker, it said, "We'll be taking off in a few minutes. It'll be a short flight, and please enjoy." And so within a minute or two, with no motion, no feeling of motion, I looked out the window and I could see that we were moving away from the Earth. The Earth was big and round, like the pictures NASA paints. And we go on, and within a few moments, it shrank and shrank and shrank until it was the size of a marble, and then it blinked out. We landed, and I exited on a concourse. It was moving, escalator. It was moving. And as I came down, I looked up at the sky, and it was the most incredible aurora borealis of colors, the pinks, the purples, the blues, the gold. I mean, it, and the energy, Augie. It was mind-boggling. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I had never felt like that. It was orgasmic, not in a sexual sense,
Yeah.
but it was like, we have chakras, right? It's like every chakra was activated. So I was met there by the lady that had invited me and
Oh,
three
okay.
other people, and they wore white robes. And as I looked out at the landscape, it was beautiful, like grass. And there were some buildings, they were like domes, and they were sunken in the ground. And I went to one of those buildings, and I attended a briefing. And that briefing, Augie, has changed my life ever since, because I was shown that if humans don't change their ways, we face the most cataclysmic times in the history of our world. And as you know, I'm a little bit of a religious person. And I believe God gave all of us free will. Other people, some people think they're predestined. Some people think that it's all about this or that.
Yeah.
But, you know, don't smoke, don't dance, don't drink, uh, whatever. But I believe God gives us the choice.
Yeah.
And if we don't work together to make this world a better place, you're doing it, Augie. You and Nori and all your people that are working together are doing that every day, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're amazing, you guys. I mean, how many shows do you do, Augie, a month? Get into
Uh,
work.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, plus you do work in pictures and stuff, and you write books. A lot of these people probably don't know a lot about Aage Nost, but he's quite a guy, and so is Nori, quite a gal.
Well, I think you've done a lot more than me because you've been around longer, so you got a little more, you got a little going on me there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Augie, all of us have a choice.
Yeah.
And so I was briefed. And most people who have heard of this kind of an experience, and for a long time, nobody had heard of the multiverse. They had never heard about multi dimensions. People with those kind of stories were sent to the loony bins, the crazy house. Some of them were electroshocked. Some of them, terrible things. But Augie, some of this really happened. Now, there's people that make stories up, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you that ever since this happened to me, my story's been the same. And I call it a mission. I was given a mission to help change the conditions on the planet through the use of modern communications. And modern began for me working at a community television station on a program that was put on by the city where they had to have an access channel. And I went in, dumb as a rock, and was able, by the time I was done, to produce a documentary that was nominated for an Emmy in San Diego. Now, I didn't win.
Yeah.
I tried.
Mhm.
And I think everyone that has had an experience wants to tell somebody,
Yeah.
but they're afraid. But the difference is that right now in the United States Congress, there's a debate going on. And there's quite a guy by the name of Steve Bassett that
Yeah.
has led the Disclosure Project. And I tell you, every time, well, our award-winning film that we started out with was called Fast Walkers, They Are Here. And Steve would drive an old car that was a clunker. I mean, you could hear it clunk. And he would come to every premiere. And he invited me to be a speaker at the X conference there in Washington, D.C. twice. I met a lot of people, and he allowed me to film interviews of his speakers. And he had some, he had people from all over the world come there. And it was even covered by the media, which
Yeah.
was real rare in those days. But my mission is called the Safe Space Project
Yeah.
because my goal and my approach is that the oceans of the world, Aage, people are afraid of them. And I respect them because on that cut down the California coast from Oregon, we had a storm that blew us 300 miles out to sea. We were going into Monterey. I mean, we ended up in Monterey because we missed San Francisco. We sailed past it. But people should realize that 99% of the crime and the disease is on land.
Yeah.
And the safest place in the world is aboard a ship. Now, what many people also don't
Yeah.
realize
That could make
is
sense.
that, yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the United Nations was originally established to be on a ship that would travel around the world as a symbol of people working together, that America and the United Nations cared about people. Well, I'm not so sure about that after watching a lot of the stuff that's going on for so
Yeah.
many years. I mean, I'm 81, and a long time ago, I believed we could all work together. But I know now that there is evil in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that if a person is brave enough to confront that evil and go on, and there's been a lot of people die because they spoke out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people afraid to speak out, but there's also a lot of people now that are testifying before Congress that are telling the world, and the news channels are picking it up, all because the government released some UFO footage that happened 6 or 8 years ago. Aage, there's thousands of cases. Boo Book was a sham. It's
Yeah.
even been admitted. The Condon Report. For anyone that's knowledgeable about this subject, they know about Blue Book. Their Graham Bethune was a pilot for President Truman on a DC 3. He came and appeared in my videos. He showed me the UFOs that everybody on the airplane
Yeah.
saw. You know, Aage, Admiral Byrd saw them. people everywhere have seen them, and they're being reported more and more every day, and it's hard to keep the lid on. The governor of Tennessee, and I happen to live in Tennessee at Chattanooga, uh, the governor of Tennessee is in Congress demanding disclosure. The senators from Tennessee are in Congress demanding disclosure. Senators and representatives from Georgia, from virtually every state in the United States,
Yeah.
disclosure. Augie, we're not crazy. There's something going on. We are being visited. I have been visited. And my project is called Project Safe Space. And you'll go ahead and put the link at the bottom of the show when you go put it up. But anyone can Google me. Just Google Robert D. Miles, filmmaker, and I'll come up. Now, there's another Robert Miles that makes the most beautiful music in the world. So if you go on IMDb, which is the International Movie Database, that's the most reputable film reporting organization in the world, you put Robert D. Miles and he'll come up. But if you put Robert D. Miles Fast Walkers, or Robert D. Miles Home of Safe Space, or Robert D. Miles Home of Time Stream, which is the movie company I own, and then I'll come up and it'll show pictures of, I don't know, 15, 16. But we've got a new one which came out, it's based on Fast Walkers. It's called Alien Agenda Planet Earth. Now, the one I did with you is called Alien Agenda 21. And they're a little different. This is what I call a primer, but anyone that knows the subject will recognize these people and these interviews. And I make documentaries, and they're about the people being on camera, telling what happened to them. And I would say that people can reach me by going to the website and filling out a form. Now, I don't answer my telephone. I've got too many actors and actresses and that kind of thing calling. And I do give an email, and that's rdm@safespaceproject.com. And you'll put the link there. And I try to check that email every day. But if you go to the form on my website, which is Robert D. Miles Home of Time Stream or Safe Space, there's a contact link in the bottom. It's in blue. There's a bunch of links there. And I had a real nice website built. It's got a lot of stuff on it. And there's some part of it talks about the Safe Space Project. And some of the exciting things we're looking at doing is we're going to have a movie being filmed in Chattanooga about September 21st. And I'm starting to gather people to be interviewed. And I'm looking for a place to have a little conference, get together, where people can ask questions and talk about movie making, about life on the boats. I mean, it's so different, Augie.
Yeah.
Standing a watch.
Yeah.
It's so different. And but it's so wonderful because when you leave land, there's serenity. You see wild birds. You see porpoises. You're exposed to a whole nother world. So I would recommend it. Now, many people get seasick. I usually get seasick for 2 or 3 days. And, and so, you got to be prepared for change, just like anything, if you're going to go to sea. But I recommend getting out on a boat, spend a day or two, ideally offshore.
Mm-hmm.
Not you go ahead.
Let me get back to the Jupiter,
Jupiter?
Jupiter
Okay,
again. When you were there,
yes.
you mentioned that they told you that if we do not change our ways here, we are going to have some challenges. But
Oh, more than that, Augie. This world will never
yeah,
be the
I was trying to be diplomatic.
same.
So so what did they say anything specific, or did they show you something that
Oh,
might have happened?
yeah. It was like being there. It
Mm.
wasn't like a movie. It was like experiencing the most horrific thing, including my daughter being torn apart
Mm.
by the actions of the magna and the earthquakes, people everywhere dying, and the screams of humanity. I mean, we've heard story of Noah's Ark and the flood. This is so much worse than that, Augie.
Yeah,
This is the atmosphere being wiped away. This is bombs and missiles and war and conflict leading up to the most cataclysmic event that the history of mankind has ever faced.
yeah, that'll do it. That
Okay.
will do just fine. I think though that there's an awful good reason for us to get our chocolate together. We need to, not just because of us, but all of population of Earth, the animals, but not just Earth. It involves other planets, and I think most people that is a little bit alive, they understand that there's stuff going on the moon, on Mars, and other planets, and it
Yeah.
affects them also, not just us.
Yeah. And I want to comment on that. Now, one of the things that's happening in the United States and also in Britain and Canada is a breakdown of the family unit.
Yeah,
There is a conscience probing uh, attempt, almost forcing attempt to be in your face and rebel and to break apart what you have in the way of family. And Augie, down through the generations of humanity, unity, whether it was the family, the tribe, whatever, the
yeah,
country, it was a wonderful thing. People took care of other people.
yeah,
People shared bread. The more hard times were, the more they shared. Anymore, it's unbelievable. And I honestly feel that it's not accidental. I believe that what we're experiencing is pre programmed
mhm.
manipulation and takeover, not only of our country, but of the world.
It's a planned event.
Yeah. And if people are foolish enough to believe the government and its lies and to put their lives in the hands of those people, Augie, they're going to have to they're going to have to read. They're going to have to go listen to shows like yours. They're going to have to somehow um, convince themselves that we all want to trust, you
Yeah,
know, as a whole,
yeah,
good people want to trust. They want to believe that this person is a good person. But Augie, people have quit trusting each other. How many times have people driven by? How many police officers have been killed here in Chattanooga, which was a peaceful city?
yeah.
We're getting 3 police officers or firemen shot dead about every week. I
Mm.
mean, it's unbelievable. And the government, do you know that back in the days of 82, when we were doing the conferences, there were already bookkeeping information that the government had lost $3 trillion out of just the housing department.
Yeah.
And that goes into the black budget. Augie, I've got a degree in management information services. Okay. I went to college, one of the best colleges in the world on computer science. During a time when computers were big, they were called mainframes and mini mainframes, and IBM never sold when they leased them. And there was a mandate that came out to the police department and the banks that they had to be backed up. I got hired by a company that hired all of their personnel from IBM.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't work for IBM, but I worked for companies that had IBM computers. And my territory was from uh, San Diego, where it borders Mexico, all the way to Santa Barbara. And I would be on the freeway starting at 4:30 in the morning to try to get over the mountains to Santa Barbara and some of those areas with 3 thermoses of coffee. Okay, because I love coffee. Anyway, so my clients were Rockwell International. They were
Mm-hmm.
Lockheed. They were World Vision. They were the biggest companies in the world. And the mandate, the federal mandate, was that they had to have backup.
Yeah.
Because the earthquake scenario at that time in California was that the San Andreas Fault was going to
Yeah.
have a 9-point earthquake, 90% chance immediately.
Yeah.
So my
I know
job
that.
was
Uh,
to go around and convince them. Now, those computer companies, believe me, they didn't let anybody get close to their computers, their mainframes.
yeah.
And it was called the Glass Palace because all those big computers were surrounded by glass,
Mm-hmm.
a glass room. Well, what you had to do is get another IBM computer because they were identical. They ran the same programs to run their programs back and forth. So if there was an emergency, and
Mm-hmm.
California Edison was my client, they're big. At that time, they had about 10 million customers.
Yeah.
Guess what program? Now, I would learn COBOL, PL1, assembler. That's what those old machines ran on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heard of
Guess
them.
what program that they wanted to run if their computer went down? What thing would they want to run?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I know. They're
Accounts accounts receivables. They wanted to send out those bills.
yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine pushing a big Winchester disk drive? Those things were 4 feet in diameter.
Yeah. I've seen some of those. In fact, I up in Nebraska, I was with someone that showed me around one in 1983,
Yeah.
and that was big. Boy, oh boy, it was big. But that's the past of the computers. Now they have computerized humans. Humans
Oh
have
yeah.
now become a hackable animal.
Yep.
And that's a different show. I think we gotta wait for that one because
Yeah.
that
And
one
it's
gets deep.
wireless. It's wireless.
Yep,
Everybody says Musk is going to run a cable through your
yep,
brain. Hey, it's
yep.
wireless.
And I see now that I see now we're getting down to the end here of the show. So
Oh,
let
really?
people, yeah, hour went fast when you're having fun.
Was
So
that an hour? You guys are too much fun.
yeah, I know it's
Hey,
probably illegal,
let,
but
let me say something about Jupiter.
yeah,
The government doesn't tell you that they've been mining Jupiter for a generation.
Uh,
The government doesn't tell you that the exotic materials and minerals that are needed in extraterrestrial travel
yeah.
are there on Jupiter and some of the other planets. Like you say, those rings are full of debris, and the planet's core is unbelievable. And so are the other planets. They're inhabited, Augie. I
Yeah.
saw it. I got the nickel tur, as Bob Dean used to say.
Mm.
And he got it too.
Yeah.
And I I tell you, people don't realize that we have a program, we have treaties. We have treaties with extraterrestrials. There's been 4 treaties signed. Some people have rumored they've got 2. Well,
Mm.
there's 4, Augie, and they've been allowed to take humans and experiment on humans.
Yeah.
And there are bases underground, there's tunnels, there's bunkers. There's a program for some people to survive.
Yeah.
And the people in your audience know about it. They know that there's something going on when Maui goes up in flames, but people with blue roofs aren't even touched.
Yeah.
They know that we've got laser weapons from space when there's laws against that. Weapons in space.
Yeah,
Augie,
there's a lot of stuff going on out there, and we are probably told somewhere between 2 to 4% of it. That's
yeah.
about all.
Well, there's a lot of people like to know about this subject. Do you know what the number one subject on the internet is?
No?
Porno.
Oh, oh,
Okay. Now, number 2,
no?
UFOs. UFOs. Now, that's amazing, isn't
Yeah, no, I believe the UFO
it?
part of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah. But Augie, what people don't realize is that human males are bred to be warriors.
yeah.
They're hunter gatherers, Augie.
Mhm.
Then their DNA, they're designed to protect the family and
Yeah.
the tribe. They're the greatest warriors there are, Augie.
Mhm.
We export them. We export warriors to other planets and civilizations as trainers
Yeah.
to train their robots, to train their people that are going to fight. Some of the science fiction shows that have been on screen are not science fiction.
I know that's about like the Matrix movie. That was a documentary,
Yeah, yeah.
but I see now that we're running out of time. Let people know where they can get a hold of you again for those that joined us late.
Oh, sure. Well, I highly recommend that they go to my website when the link will be there. But if they want to Google it, they just put in Robert D. Miles, Home of Safe Space, SAFESPACE. Now, on my email, it's R like Robert, D like Douglas, M like Miles, at safespaceproject.com. And that's SAFESPACE project, PROJECT.com. And my documentaries are documentaries of the people talking. It's not a bunch of baloney.
Yeah.
It's people with real experiences that have done thousands of hours of research, people like yourself.
Yeah.
And some of it are people that have been abducted. Some
Mm.
of them tell a true story, some of them make it up for money. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, there's a,
And
and you got
so,
some of the most credible people in the alternative arena on your documentaries.
yeah,
And in
yeah,
fact, if people want to find the documentary that Robert and I did, go to Amazon and put in Aliens and Agenda 21. You're going to find out what's going on in this world behind the curtain, as well as you're going to see some of the most incredible pictures from space, and they are NASA prints, many of them, and there's some of the Russian prints, and I think we got a couple of them from the Chinese Space Agency also, showing there's stuff going on in space we are never been told of.
yeah, Augie, and there's another one that we released, which is an upgraded fast walker with 4K footage and stereophonic sound and captions, I believe, and it's called Alien Agenda Planet Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And they're side by side. And if they've never seen some of these people who have passed on,
Yeah.
like the Pope sent Monsignor Coraldo Balducci to be interviewed. Okay, and he was the Catholic Church's demonologist, and he wrote all the books, and he was a head person that did what do you call it when you take out evil spirits? Whatever it is. Anyway, he got up and he says right on film, he says that the Catholic Church has been in touch with aliens for thousands of years and that they're more holy than humans because they don't have original sin.
Yeah.
Now, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
we know that. They admitted it. So yeah, we know. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we are down to the bone here at the end. So I
Uh,
thank you very much, Robert,
be
for being.
sure,
Yeah,
be sure and tell them I don't answer my phone uh, because that's not that I'm not interested.
yeah,
It's that, doggone it, I'm busy making movies and
yeah,
I'm not there a lot of the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give out your phone because you're gonna get buried. So anyway, just thank you very much, Robert. This was wonderful, and it was interesting to hear that story again because we did a show about probably 4 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And
Good
if
show.
you go to Broadcast Team Alpha, go deep in the in the videos, then you will find us there also.
Yeah,
So
and you were kind enough to have us put it on my website.
yeah,
So it says the Jupiter experience, and it's you and Nori. They're interviewing me, and I think I got a little emotional
yeah,
that time, where this time it's been more fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We had fun. So thank you very much. And then,
Thank you.
yeah, for
Thank you
those of
very
you
much.
out there watching, until next time, be good to each other.